Many people want to take that leap and they just know that they don't want what they have and they want to just do something else. That's why we do it, because otherwise you're always living somewhere else. You're in the future, or you're thinking about regrets from the past. You're never here and now.
That's probably a sentence that I hear a lot of people use. I don't have time for that today. It'll be tomorrow. We can't wait. We're not guaranteed anything.
A lot of this is cumulative, where it's like you can't just jump into being present all the time. Here, I love this just concept of helping people become more bold. I mean, it's kind of what I stand for in life. so it's a perfect fit. But it wasn't always the case for me. You know, I had a very kind of standard, typical upbringing. I'm from New York. I grew up on Long Island, went to school in Buffalo, went back to Long Island and got a corporate job and worked my entire 20s for JetBlue Airways. Great company. Nice. It was a great job. I always kind of knew that it wasn't really for me, but I didn't know what to do about it. I was just very complacent. They also treated me well. They paid me well. I worked for an airline, so they had amazing perks. So it was really kind of tough to make that leap. I would say, luckily, my wife wasn't as lucky. She worked for Time Inc. and publishing, you know, kind of a rough industry. And she got to the point at Time Inc. where she was promised, I think, her third promotion and was not given it, even though her boss is like, you did great, you've earned it, we just can't afford it. And sorry about that. So she came home one day and she said, you know, this is bullshit. You know, what are we doing with our lives? Do you want to quit our jobs and sell all our stuff and move to the Caribbean? And I thought about it, you know, not that long, because I knew that I wasn't really happy where I was. And I said, sure, let's do it. And the rest is history. You know, we traveled the world. We started out in the Caribbean, in the U.S. Virgin Islands, which is where we lived for a year. I ended up doing a little consulting for JetBlue, and that quickly kind of dissolved. And I went fully into bartending, which was my new skill that I was using down in the Caribbean. And it was an amazing adventure. We really, you know, spent a year down there. We spent a year in Australia, 6 months in New Zealand, just traveled all over the place and worked our way through. And it was great. That's not how I got to this place of helping people live free and kind of unplug from the matrix and deprogram and just enjoy the shit out of their lives, which is what I'm about. And I appreciate that. How that came about was our travels brought us to Breckenridge, Colorado. Amazing ski town. If you're not familiar with it, it basically wins all these awards for like the most picture perfect Christmas kind of town. And it really looks and feels like that. And it's a great community. And I was there for, at this point, we went for a year, but we never left because it was amazing. That being said, a few years into it, I was working this amazing job as a bartender. I was a bar manager, skiing 100 days a season.
Wow. Yeah.
I was there with my wife, my dog. If you looked kind of like on paper or on Facebook, which is how everyone wants to look at our lives, you know, it would have looked amazing. But for me, I was extremely depressed. I was at the lowest point of my life.
Wow.
And it was crazy. It was shocking to me because I had already done what I felt like most people want to do, which is I want to quit my corporate job. I want to travel the world. I want to do interesting things. I was skiing, like I said, I was having all this fun and I was miserable. So it took that visceral experience for me to realize that it didn't matter where I worked. It didn't matter how much fun I was having. If I wasn't taking care of what's in here and what's, you know, in my heart, it's just not a formula that works. And that
Incredible.
realization, that set me on this path of self-discovery, you know, just discovering mindfulness. I started meditating, slowly kind of dug myself out of that hole with practices like meditation. And I started journaling and different things I would just start adding. And then life just got kind of amazing, almost, I won't say overnight. It took time, but it got better and better and better. And I slowly started just sharing what was working with other people. They would ask me,
Amazing.
what's going on with you? You're smiling more. You seem happier. You seem more fulfilled, more present. And we would meet over coffee, and it was supposed to be like half-hour chats. And 2 hours later, they would leave feeling amazing. I would leave feeling amazing. And I was still bartending at this point. And I just realized, there's something here. Like it feels too good for me to ignore. And that's what set me on this path of becoming a personal freedom coach and just starting to write more and helping to inspire people to break free and just enjoy their lives, but also take care of themselves, make sure that they're meditating and doing the things that they need to do to deprogram, because so many people want to take that leap and they just know that they don't want what they have and they want to just do something else instead of actually taking the time to figure out what is that without all the noise and the bullshit, which is, it's all pervasive. I mean, it's from our parents, it's from all of our family, it's from society, government, media. So if you don't know how to kind of turn off all the noise or just quiet down, and that's just not the external noise, it's also a lot of our internal noise, which is telling us you're not good enough to do that. Our family never did anything like that. Who are you to do something like that? Then you're always going to be making decisions from that place of being programmed and doing what you think is the right thing for you, but it might not be. So that, in a nutshell, is how I got to this point.
That is, it's such an amazing journey because, there had to have been some planning or something there, but, what were your next steps?
So I guess there's kind of two aha moments in the story. The first one is to actually leave corporate and start this new adventure. That for me was years in the making. I knew in my soul that I was not living the life that I wanted to be living. And it's when you're not doing the kind of work that I do every day now and that I help people do, that it's hard to get that clarity. You just feel it as something. Like some kind of like little itch that you can't scratch. It's like there's something there. You're like, there's something more to life, and I don't know what it is, but I know that there is. I just know that there is. So, the aha moment there was my wife just giving me the opportunity, just saying like, "Do you want to do this?" And at that point, it was all in my court, and it was like, yeah, I mean, I really do. I don't want to live with regrets. I really don't. Something that was huge for me was the concept that we could always go back.
Yeah.
Now in my life, that's over 10 years ago. There's no going back. I mean, it's just, why would you? Life just keeps getting better and better. But at that time, when I was really scared to make that move, to leave a very comfortable, easy, well-paying job, I had to tell myself, you could always go back. Maybe it's not at the same company. I could always go work for an airline. I could always go work in the travel industry. I could do something and be fine. And that gave me the confidence to do it. So I think, for someone who's considering a bold move, just realize that, you can go back. You could say, I tried it, no regrets, and go back. Odds of you doing that, I would say, are slim to absolute zero. But to get over that ego that's going to tell you all the reasons why you shouldn't do something like that, it's a great little tip, a great little tool. The aha moment for me later on, when I was really miserable, like I was at a really low point in my life, after that, it was, I started getting a feeling of anxiety, and I didn't know really what anxiety was. I've never had it before, but I'd show up at this restaurant I was working at. My heart would start beating faster. My hands would get sweaty. I would immediately have to go to the bathroom and splash water on my face. Pretty much follow that up with a shot of Jameson, because I was drinking way too much at the time, to just escape, to just numb myself for the shift. Like I didn't want to be there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it might not be alcohol, it could be something else, but almost everyone is distracted or numbing themselves instead of leaning into the present moment and learning from it. But of course, I didn't know that. I was just really unhappy and trying to get through it. So that, that anxiety led me to therapy, which it was no stranger to me. I've seen therapists in my life. I've actually been on medication when I was younger. I saw psychiatrists. So I went to this therapist and I said, I have no desire to be on medication. I just need to figure out what's going on, why I'm so unhappy. And luckily, this particular therapist was a proponent of mindfulness and just turned me on to the concept of mindfulness. On my own, I discovered the Headspace app and I started meditating with the Headspace app, which
Amazing.
I still use to this day. Every one of my clients uses it. I don't try to pretend like I'm going to do a better job than the thing that helped me. So all of my clients use Headspace. I can't recommend it enough. And that was kind of what started it all. So I owe a lot to the therapist, but I also know that wasn't enough. That was just the start. So it has to be kind of like a multi-pronged approach of talking about what's going on in life, but also doing something that's going to change our behaviors, our perspectives on the world, just our beliefs about what we're capable of. And that to me always comes back to meditation. Meditation was and continues to be the game changer in my life. It's the most important ritual I've adopted. It's the most important thing I do every day. It's once you feel how it changes things, I always tell people, like, just do it for a week, 3 to 5 minutes in the morning, do it for 10 days. You'll feel something, because words don't teach. And I love to talk. I mean, I'm sure you do too. We love to talk and use our words, and I love to write. But at the end of the day, you have to experience something. And it might be small. It might be, you stub your toe and you don't freak out, or you're making dinner and you spill the spaghetti sauce and you just kind of like look at it and be like, all right, I got to go clean it up. And it doesn't ruin your night. Mm-hmm. When you get that little bit of a gap of responsiveness instead of just complete knee-jerk reactivity, then you start to take power back in life. And it's really, really powerful.
Was it hard to kind of get into that habit? Did it feel awkward? Did you tell people around you what you were doing? Can you kind of expand a little bit on how that was such a pivotal moment for you?
Have tried meditation, or they just say that they don't have time. And of course, that's the greatest reason why anyone should meditate, is because you're too busy and you don't have time. But for me, it's amazing. It was honestly one of these things where I just started doing it and I never looked back. It was so profound for me, because I was 35 when I started meditating, and I had gone 35 years basically thinking that my thoughts were real, having no separation between a thought and the thinker who's thinking that thought, the observer behind the thought. And just in the first couple of days of meditating, I was literally able to kind of like step back from myself, almost gain this perspective of looking down at myself. And I could start to sift through my thoughts, where it was like, is this thought serving me? Is this something that I want to keep thinking? And that level of kind of separation from my own thoughts was something that I never had in my life. And it made me want more. It made me realize that, maybe I've been putting way too much emphasis on my thoughts. Maybe I'm wasting energy trying to find the end of a thought, which now I know is impossible. You really can't think your way out of a problem. You just can't. I mean, even Einstein said that you cannot solve a problem with the same mind that created it. And this is one of the greatest logical thinkers of our time. And he's saying, don't use your brain to solve a problem. You can't use that same mind. So, there's something else. And that's what meditation, again, viscerally, it wasn't like I read it in a book or I watched a video. I did it. I meditated and I started feeling that I could actually have a different perspective on my thoughts. And I loved it. It just started to feel really empowering. And I never looked back and I never stopped. And it's like I said, it's my one non-negotiable. I do a lot of beautiful rituals and practices in my life, but not every day. meditation every day. It's just too important.
Wow. Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, but it's extremely uncomfortable because it's not practiced, and presence is not practiced. So what is practice? Distraction. And we practice it so much that we're so used to being distracted. And you walk in and you turn on the TV, or you get in the car and you turn on the radio. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that. It's just that constant need to have noise, to have a mathematician and a philosopher in 1654. So just imagine, times are a little different, probably a little slower. And he said all of humanity's problems are created by man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. All of humanity's problems. So every war, every conflict, every internal conflict is because we can't sit by ourselves alone in a room. And it's true. Talk to 100 people, 99 would probably be uncomfortable sitting by themselves with nothing to do except being with themselves. Yeah. And what does that say? Like, how could you possibly tap into your unique reason for being alive and fulfill your creative desires and align with what the universe has kind of planned for your life if you don't tap into that silence? If you're just listening to the news, I mean, really, like, is that really where you want to get inspired, or just anything, just TV, and there's nothing wrong with TV. It's just, you got to shut it off at least for a couple of minutes a day. I mean, really, when you think about it like that, it's a noisy, busy world. And if you don't have the tools to quiet it down and to slow down, and it's not just the external, it's the crazy, incessant monkey mind, the chatter in our minds that are constantly telling us not to do the bold thing, not to take the risks, not to live free, not to live fully. If you don't know how to quiet those down, you'll never be free. You'll be living your entire life based on someone else's expectations, which leads into kind of the next thing. I know you asked, was I sharing about meditation? Did I care that other people knew I was meditating? Luckily for me, just leaving corporate and traveling started to break down that caring what other people think part of me. Yeah. And I really feel like to live boldly and to live free, you cannot care what other people think.
You care about what the right people think, but yeah.
well, about how you're living life. And I really, it's not about even your closest friends, your closest family. Like, it doesn't matter. Yeah. Your spouse, it doesn't matter. That's not an insult. But I work with a lot of people that are just trying to attract in a mate, trying to attract in that perfect partner. If you're being anything but your authentic self, you're going to attract someone else that likes a fake version of you. Yeah. But if you're living authentically and you're making decisions based on how you feel and what your intuition is telling you, you're going to attract someone who actually likes you for you. And who doesn't want that? But most people will never have that because they're trying to be the person that this other person wants. Yeah. So it's a recipe for disaster, and we wonder why we're all miserable and getting divorced at crazy rates. And it's in a word, programming. Yeah. Really just when you start to realize how programmed we are, and you could look at your entire life that you're conscious of, just what you've been exposed to, even, your religion. If you start to think, where did that come from? Did I actually choose my religion? Yeah. And then you go a layer deeper, and if you start to do some kind of research into brain science and just how our minds developed and the power of our subconscious mind, which controls 95 to 99% of our life and how we make decisions, how we see the world, most of that subconscious mind was formed in our first 7 years of life. So think about that. You can't even remember, what you were exposed to at 2 or 3, even though it shaped almost everything that makes you you. So to realize, I am programmed. Yeah. Just to say it, wow, I'm really, really programmed. I need to start deprogramming. I need to start unplugging from this matrix that has us all hooked in like tentacles, and start to just kind of slowly pull off the tentacles and say, I don't need your approval. I don't need to please you. I don't need to do what my neighbor's doing. I don't need to do what my siblings are doing, and really start to take back that control. And it doesn't happen overnight, but it's the main thing where you're never going to live a bold, complete, fulfilled, joyful life if you don't deprogram. It will always be someone else's life.
Yeah. One of the ways that, or one of the things that really helped me start to tell me a little bit more about your experience with meditation, kind of your first, your first experiences, and how it evolved into you now teaching people how to do it.
I love this question because it's so personal, and it's changed my entire life. I mean, it really has. I can't stress it enough. For me, it started with a few minutes every morning. I use the Headspace app. I still highly, highly recommend this app because I've learned over the years, there is brain science behind it. But right when you wake up and you're kind of groggy and foggy, you're actually in a different brain state. You're in between deep sleep state and you're in between fully awake. So deep sleep is theta, fully awake is beta, in between is alpha. So right when you wake up, just go meditate. Just do it. Just get into that habit of like, right when I wake up, I sit for 3 to 5 minutes. Use the Headspace app. Use something that's going to guide you. It's called mindfulness meditation. There's lots of different kinds of meditation, but mindfulness meditation is like going to the gym for your mind. So when you go to the gym and you do sets and you do reps and you're building your muscle, every time you sit in meditation, you're just focusing on something. Typically it's the breath, and you just try to pay attention to it. And you just try to, maybe you're counting your breaths, but then you realize, oh my God, I'm distracted. I'm thinking about what's for breakfast. I'm thinking about my busy day ahead of me. But in that noticing, that's the gift. Everyone's like, well, I'm noticing all these thoughts. I'm noticing how much my mind races. And I say, congratulations, you're noticing. Every time you notice and you bring it back to whatever you're focused on, typically the breath, you're making new connections in your brain. You're literally training your brain to be focused instead of distracted. Because remember, most of us have trained ourselves to be distracted for, not months, not years, decades of distraction. So what you're doing is telling your mind, it's like, well, we're going to go to the gym. We're going to train in focus, and then just watch how it changes. So that was the start for me. I've tried different meditations. I've increased my meditation time. I typically meditate for 20 minutes every morning. Sometimes I'm thinking the whole time. Sometimes I get really deep and I feel a deep connection to whatever it is. You can call it God, source, the universe. I feel like I am one with everything and all is well in the world. And I also get information. I get downloads. I get answers to questions. I'll even ask questions and just see what pops up. So it's developed in terms of a practice, but at the end of the day, it's I love to use the analogy of if you're toasting bread and you get the toast out, you get the toaster oven, you put the bread in, turn it on, and you're waiting. If you don't plug in the toaster oven, good luck making toast. You're not connecting to the source of power. Meditation, of course, helps you practice focus. It helps you turn off all the noise. It helps you slow down your life. It helps you kind of control your emotions, but it connects you to the source. It's like, I'm going to power up. And that's why I say do it first thing too, because you're starting your day in a really high vibe, connected place, and decisions become easier. Intuitive guidance becomes louder and more clear and profound. So, I don't start there, that's my progression to start. It's a noisy world. We have noisy minds, and you have to, think about it, if you don't take a few minutes out of your busy, noisy day to just be with yourself, how do you know who you are? How do you know how to make decisions? You're literally not a person. You're a shell. You're on automatic. You're a robot if you don't do that.
Yes.
I get passionate about meditation.
That's why I wanted to ask the question. It's so awesome to, to hear somebody who has been through kind of this meditation transformation, because I've always really struggled with meditation because my brain, it like everybody, and especially when I was in, that business, like, hustle, can't put it down. It was like I'd sit there and, what's the point of this? I'm just thinking about all my to-dos, what I got to,
And
but I've
that is
also,
why we do it. That's why we do it,
yes,
because otherwise you're always living somewhere else. You're in the future, or you're thinking about regrets from the past. You're never here and now. And then you couple that with something else that I talk a lot about, which is just appreciation of life, like a mortality, appreciating death, realizing that this really could be your last day on earth. It really could.
yeah,
There's absolutely no guarantee that this is going to be your last day. So how do you want to spend it? How do you want to spend it? And it might not be, you're quitting your job, but you might smile more. You might enjoy your next meal a little more. You might enjoy your next cup of coffee a little more. And what that will do is have ripple effects. And again, it's law of attraction. It starts to kind of generate more of that positive attraction and magnetism of things that you want, because you're living the way you want to live, because it might be your last day. So it's a combination of living in the moment and knowing that we're not guaranteed anything. So I'm going to be present tomorrow is like, I mean, it's like the craziest thing to kind of think. It's like, I'll deal with meditation tomorrow, but I'm too busy today. You really got to rethink that.
that's probably a sentence that I hear a lot of people use. I don't have time for that today. It'll be tomorrow. And you're right. It's just what's we can't wait. We're not guaranteed anything. Kind of advice for our listeners of
Yeah,
being beyond meditation, things that they can do to be mindful and present in
of
their
course.
everyday, in their everyday lives.
Of course. Yeah. I have to say meditation again, just because I want
Yep.
to beat it into people's heads that it will make everything easier too. A lot of this is cumulative,
Yeah.
where it's like, you can't just jump into being present all the time. I'm not present all the time, but if I didn't meditate, it's like a head start. You really get a head start
Yeah.
on your day. Um,
Yeah.
Beyond that, I always tell people to set mindful reminders, like literally set a reminder in your phone. If you want to be present during a meeting or a nice conversation with your partner, or you want to eat more consciously, then set a reminder around mealtime, or put a Post-it note on your lunch at work that says, sit with no distractions and eat this meal. Like, actually take a little bit of time to get ahead of it, to say, when am I going to be distracted today? And how could I remind myself to be present during that time? It could be a piece of jewelry or a bracelet, really anything that's going to remind you. But this is one of the best uses of technology, is setting mindful reminders. The other thing is just realizing that, and this is kind of, people ask me a lot about vices and drinking and smoking weed and things like that, because I'm a proponent of enjoy your life, do whatever feels right to you, but be present enough to know that, are you trying to escape your present moment, or are you trying to enhance it and bring yourself closer to the present moment? And I think a lot of what people don't realize is that our emotions are telling us something. And if you're not being mindful, like if you're not present and listening to that, even if it's something horrible like deep, deep, dark depression, if you're just, well, I'm just going to have a drink to kind of forget about that, or I'm just going to go for a run, nothing wrong with that. But all of these things, what they're doing is they're hiding that guidance. That's why you want to kind of be sensitive to your guidance. And you could only do that when you're practicing mindfulness and you're being present in the moment, and you're realizing, okay, I feel like totally repressed in life. I feel like there's more for me to do. I feel like my soul has moved on from this job, but my body is still stuck here, and I have to make an income, and I have to provide for my family. But just acknowledging that is going to start to change things for you. Just to say, okay, I'm having anxiety. I'm feeling depression. Let me lean in instead of numbing myself and planning the next vacation. Because I'm telling you from experience, I vacationed around the world, and it was fun. But when it slowed down, all those same problems were just worse because I had done that, because I was living this different life. So I wasn't listening to what my emotions were telling me. I was hiding them or masking them by just filling my life. And I was skiing and I was traveling and I was doing all these things. But then when I got really quiet, it was like, something's off. Something's off. So that was a little kind of tangent from practicing mindfulness. But I almost think it's more important for people to understand why. Because if you really want it, if you really like, I just want to be present in my life, I want to know what my emotions are telling me, then you're going to find a way. The how, like, you will meditate, you will set reminders, you will work with a coach, you will watch, podcasts and YouTube videos, you'll do it. But if you don't really know why, if it's like, well, things are okay, things are good, and deep down you're like, that's not the truth, then you're always going to be living like a half-lived life, which is a tragedy. I mean, it really is.
Right. Or we just keep...
Depression and anxiety usually don't come like full bore. It's like a little unease. There's a little something off. And that is your guidance system. If you're tuned in, you don't have to wait until it becomes depression. Most of us, because it's a noisy world, because we're not meditating, because we're not taking care of ourselves, these like little nudges, they have to become full-blown alarms. It has to, if you're living a life of unease, we wonder why we get diseases, because it's our body telling us. It's like, you didn't listen to me when I gave you a nudge. You didn't listen to me when I gave you anxiety. You didn't listen to me when I gave you 6 months of depression. Maybe now you'll listen to me. And it just gets worse and worse and worse. So that's why I always tell people, like, if they're miserable, if you're like, something has to change, this is not working, I just say, like, congratulations, like, you're at that point. It doesn't have to get worse for you. But some people, it does. It does. Yeah. So, if someone's listening to this and they're like, do I want it to get worse? It's like, is it bad enough? Is my misalignment, living life inauthentically, not kind of going through the motions of life, not living kind of the true expression of myself? Is that, can I tolerate that? Or do I have to wait for something horrible to happen and then I'll make a change?
Yeah. Or get to your deathbed and regret all of the things you didn't do or didn't tackle, or even if it comes with uncomfortableness. And I think initially that's what's so hard for people, is even if their comfort zone is uncomfortable, they'll still choose this comfort zone, and really being able to take that leap is, like you said, just...
And meditation gives you that power to decipher that. It's literally, it gives you that access to your guidance system, which is telling you, it's like, you got to make a change. You have to. And at a certain point, it's on you to choose to ignore that.
Yes. Yeah. 100%. Of having this conversation of deep dive into your beliefs and the programming. So I think that this was so incredibly valuable. But I also want to know, what does a day in the life of Mindful Mike look like?
Ooh, I've been trying to wake up earlier, which means like 4:30. That doesn't always happen. This morning I meditated probably like 4:30 for 20 minutes. And then I went back to bed and I just laid in bed. So for me, my whole morning is pretty much mine. And that's freedom for me. I don't typically schedule calls. I don't typically work with clients. I don't do that much until about midday. So I spend a lot of time, whether it's meditating, exercising, writing in my journal, having a nice breakfast, taking my dog out for a walk on the beach. I mean, I kind of did all of that. I didn't write my journal today, complete transparency. I don't always do everything. And I think also that's important to realize. I tell my clients, like, I'm not trying to give you a set of rules to follow, or else it's just back in a religion, and this is not about that. It's not about looking for someone else to tell you what to do. I want them to do what I have laid out in the program while they're working with me. But after that, I want them to be their own guides. I want them to be their own coaches. And the only way you could do that is to kind of realize what you need. I need to meditate every day. Some people might need to break out that journal every day. Some people might need to get that run in or get some exercise. But I can't tell you that. All I could do is help you figure that out for yourself. And then you kind of design the ideal life for you. So for me, it's the morning is sacred. And that, again, that's not always the case. It's just in an ideal day, that's the case. Typically get into work in the afternoons, and that's just a lot of conversations with people, supporting my clients, just talking to people. I do a lot of just communicating on social media and making posts, and I love to write. So I'm writing poetry, I'm writing social media content, going on podcasts and things like that. And then typically around, 4:35, I like to just wrap up because that's the sun sets here in Costa Rica around 5:00. So another walk on the beach, take in the sunset, make dinner. Sometimes, again, my wife and I have a pretty unique relationship. Sometimes she's not home. She's with her boyfriend. It's how I like it. I try to be disciplined and regimented and have a structure and have a schedule, but there's a lot of flexibility within that. So it's the freedom that comes from discipline.
Yes. And oftentimes
to your schedule again, and you're slave to all these things that have to go a certain way for you.
I know you've obviously lived and traveled to a lot of places, and this moment, this season of life has brought you to Costa Rica. Why Costa Rica?
I give a lot of credit to a lot of amazing decisions in my life to my wife. And this was one of them. We were smack in the middle of COVID. It was winter 2021. We were feeling very confined in Colorado. And she just brought it up. She's like, why don't we go to Costa Rica for 3 months? At the time, it was 3 months. We took both our dogs. We wore masks, traveled to Costa Rica in the heart of COVID. There was like nothing open. We just basically just got warm and just enjoyed life by a beach. And then it just became, we just craved it. We realized, we were missing that from our lives. And the next year it was 6 months. And the next year it was 8 months. And now it's about, 8, 9, it might be 10 months this year. So it's just, it's flipped. There was a time when going to Colorado really felt like home. And now I come back here and this feels like home. And I think that goes again into just living freely and realizing that things change. Like it's okay to admit, I'm ready for something different. I've changed. Or even you could say, I made a mistake. I've been living in a place I don't want for years too long, or I've been working at a place that I in my whole career, it's always been like I worked for an airline for 10 years. 5 of those years, I knew it wasn't for me. I bartended for 8 years. 4 of those years, I knew it wasn't for me. After bartending, I had my own business, something I always wanted. And it was a marketing business, advertising. I had that for a year. 6 months of it, I knew it wasn't for me. So you could see like the learning curve of is going down. And I think it's that ability to say, we're always changing, and I have so many mentors that I follow, Alan Watts, Wayne Dyer, Esther Hicks, but Anthony DeMello says something which is just, to me, was like, wow, we should be able to change our careers like we change our clothes. But we get so attached to it's this identity instead of, yesterday, Steve Jobs, paraphrasing Steve Jobs, he says, you wake up a few days in a row and you're not psyched about what you used to be psyched about, give it a few more days. But then if it's like, nope, this isn't it, move on.
Yeah.
Why does it need to be 5 years? Why does it need to be 20 years? And even if it is, for a lot of people who midlife, I always say it's a crossroads, not a crisis. If you're at midlife and it's like, oh shit, I can't believe I've been working this job for 20 years. Again, congratulations for feeling that way. At least it's not 80 or 90, you're on your deathbed. If you're at 40, 50, even 60, it's like, you're young, do something about it. That little nagging, voice it's your soul. It's like, it's telling you something. And to say, well, this is what I've always done, or, a few more years I could retire. A few more years? Who says? Who says you have that?
Yeah, 100%. Meditation. Tell us where they can find Mindful Mike.
Sure. I really would like to give your listeners a gift. I think it's more important with this kind of info, just to give. And when someone's ready for more, they're going to be ready for more. So I think the best way to kind of keep in touch with me is to sign up for a 10-day email course that I put together. It's totally free. It's amazing. I spent a lot of time putting it together, and it's a lot of my philosophy and just what I coach anyway. It's called The Art of Time Mastery. And you could just go to artoftm.com and just sign up, and you'll start getting emails every day for 10 days with just packed with tips on staying more mindful, being present, meditation, all these, just so many. It's just jam-packed of goodness. So artoftm.com. Otherwise, I'm posting almost every day on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, at Mike Messeroff. You can pretty much find me anywhere. My website's mikemesseroff.com. I write on Substack at mindfulmike.com. So lots of options. But I think if anyone really is interested in this, just sign up for the course and just get some info right to your inbox, and you don't have to worry about where to find me. It'll come to you.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I'll make sure I'll
consider it a gift, because when I heard this story, it changed my perspective on things. And I just want to share a story, because this is, the art of being bold. And I really think it's worth kind of reiterating that the people that are closest to you are going to expect you to be as you are, not as you are becoming. And it's fundamental to living boldly, to start taking back that kind of authority over your life and not care what other people think. And also realize, like, you are the way you are because of them, but you don't have to stay that way. You have a choice. This is your life. So the story goes like this. There was a man who found an eagle's egg, and he was a farmer. So he brought this eagle's egg back to his hen, who had a nest full of little chicken eggs. So this eaglet hatched with this brood of chicks. And for years, this eagle grew up with a bunch of chickens and thought it was a chicken. It would, cuck and claw, scratch for worms. It would thrash its massive eagle wings and just get a few feet above the ground, because that's what chickens do. And it was looking around and seeing all these chickens doing that. So years go by, the eagle gets old, and one day he's looking up at the sky and he sees just a gorgeous bird. And he looks at his little neighbor chicken and he says, "Who's that?" The neighbor chicken says, "That's the eagle. That's the king of the birds. He lives in the sky, but we're chickens, so we live here on the ground." And that eagle lived its entire life as a chicken. And I share that because everyone's an eagle. We're surrounded by chickens, and that's not an insult to your family, to anyone who's kind of in your network. But if you don't start to live the way that you feel, then you're just going to kind of be cucking and clawing and complaining and busy and noisy. And that's what everyone else does. And it's so easy. How are you doing? I'm busy. How's life? It's all right. Is today the best day of your life? Why not? Like, be an eagle and catch yourself when you're a chicken. Catch yourself when you're complaining about situations, when you're pushing off your responsibility and blaming other people for where you are in life. That's what chickens do. Eagles take that power back. Eagles soar above it. Eagles have a different perspective. So I thought your listeners might like that one.